This is Shay Bynes, founder and chief fire igniter of Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur, and this is the KDE Podcast Live. With a beautifully diverse panel of co-hosts, get ready for powerful and fresh perspectives of what it looks like to be a Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur. Let's go. Hey, let's go. Hey, everybody, how are you? It is I, Latara Venice, and I am here with Phil and Dory today. You're probably like, where's everybody else? Well, today is guest day. We actually have a guest. Yay.
Drum roll, please.
There's a reason why we haven't had guests, and I'll explain why in a minute. But first, I want to welcome you to another episode of the KDE Podcast Live. This is episode number 470. I like that. Like, for real, we're closer to 500. We're going to do something really big for 500. I got to go and look at the calendar, though. I keep saying that, and I keep forgetting to go look at the calendar so I know the exact date so I can start planning, like, let's do this and let's do that. Then I can bug Phil. Let's go do this and let's do it like that, Phil. How about this?
I'm thinking partay.
I get excited when it's time to party. I like to party, y'all. I like to party, but you know, hey, not in that kind of way, y'all. Don't be thinking that's like the old me. That's not who I am anymore.
And that's an episode for another time.
It's not who I am anymore. We just want to welcome you guys today. Listen, we do have a guest we'll be bringing on a little bit later, and I'm super excited to have Dr. Nadia Brown. And we're going to be kind of having a different kind of conversation today that is really necessary to have, and that's what we want to do. We want to be able to bring conversations to the forefront that will make you think about how God might want to do something, how God wants things to be, how the kingdom wants to show up in different industries, right? Nadia is in sales, and she is in what typically is a male-dominated industry. She went over to working with women, and then God's like, we're going to shift, and I want to move you back over to working with some corporate teams, and so now you kind of have to lead men. Like, oh boy, this is going to be a great conversation. And what does that look like? And why would God shift a woman into that type of position? That's important to know, because Jesus really cared about women and their roles and how they showed up. So I'm really interested to have this conversation today. But before we have that conversation, I want to know what's going on with you all in your world, Dory and Phil, in your business and what's been happening with it. So let's start with Dory.
Hey. Well, it's interesting if you're a person who does outdoor events, because in the spring and summer, it's always really iffy. And so I've had 2 events canceled this week, which is kind of a bummer. One's getting rescheduled, so that's cool. But yeah, you just kind of have to go with the flow and regroup and say, okay, God, well, that got canceled. And what else can I do today? And sometimes you find some really cool things to work on that maybe you put on the back burner. And now it's time to dig in and do those, since you have a little bit of time off. So yeah, that's pretty much where it is. And by the way, you like my hair? I added some red to it. There you go.
Spicy.
Not business related, but you got to keep the look. If you're a drum chick, you got to keep the look going. That's all I'm saying.
That's good. I love it. Phil, and Phil, add an update on South Africa as well as you're talking. What's happening out there?
Yeah. So the wife is in her second week in South Africa. And so it's going well. I'm having conversations with her every day, sometimes twice a day, but they're 6 hours ahead. But yeah, she's encountering just people, right? A big reason for her going is, she had some mentees in South Africa since the last time we were there in the summer. And so she mentored a group for about 8 months or so. And this is the culmination of the end of that mentoring session. And so she's there as a catalyst, just trying to connect the people and connect the dots. And it's been some interesting things happening in South Africa. I feel like now that KDE has stepped foot on the continent, God has given us access to the whole continent. So, but we're starting in South Africa, so it's pretty cool. Let's see what's going on with KDE. I would say that we're in the midst of doing a new experience with the community. Some people that are connected to the email list received communication about it. Last week, I wouldn't talk about it when Latara asked me about it because it was a select group. But this
Mm-hmm.
week, I'll talk about it's basically we're helping people with getting their 90-day plan together with God, 90-day business plan with God, and it's a 10-day challenge. And so, after this first initial round, we'll find ways to open it up to the rest of the community that didn't get it the first time. And so, we're learning some interesting things from it. I just say that piece, and it's going to help transform the way that we help the community going forward.
Yeah. And I love, and it's a fun experience, right? If I'm not, it's like it walks people through kind of a fun way to do it and get things
Mm-hmm.
done, keeps attention. I
Yeah.
love that. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I love
It's
that.
gamified, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a conversation with I think he's the CEO a couple of weeks ago because I have been, signed up I sign up for stuff and then don't come back and work on it. It's like, oh, I'm gonna check it out. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about what that does and getting KDE on new eyes. And I'm excited about what's happening in South Africa. I'm looking at pictures all the time. Shay contacted me at one something in the morning. She must wasn't thinking on my Voxer. Thank God that my phone is like on do not disturb at that time. And I was like, she must be bored.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, but they are having some great adventures out there. That's good. What's going on with Latara Venice and her world and her business? We had a team meeting earlier, and I talked about how God is really shifting some things, and I'm watching myself shift more into a consultant and advisor type of position in what I do, and a lot less coaching. Um, because the work that I'm doing privately, I just picked up a politician of all people. I was like, God, why'd you not a coach, like someone who is getting into the political arena and they want help with rebranding themselves? I was like, God, what
Hmm.
that? But it makes perfect sense because when you're kind of are shifting and rebranding, there's a soul issue there. And there is, you have to kind of shift and your mindset has to shift, which means your heart has to be postured a little bit differently. So it's kind of interesting what he's doing. And he's like, customizing my services. Like, I'm like, what are we doing here? So I can't do it the way I've been doing it. It's like totally shifting for me, even with fashion. And I was like, fashion? What we doing putting fashion in the thing? I'm just going with the flow, y'all. I'm just going with the flow. And that's all I can do. That's all I can do is go with the flow because we never know why God is doing a thing. We never know why God is doing a thing,
Mhm.
right? So that's what's been going on with my business. And I'm seeing things in seasons, my business in seasons, as opposed to um like it's a whole thing, but it happens in seasons because it's layered. There's a layered assignment, but it's in seasons.
Mhm.
Almost like if you guys know who Tabitha Brown is and you watch how she moves, one season she's doing this, another season she's working on her food line, another season it'll be her fashion line, but it all fits the message and her mission. So that's what I'm doing. That's what's been happening with me. It's fun.
Well, Latar, I totally get that because in my previous business, I was doing a lot of business coaching and branding, and
Hmm.
women would always surprise me and say, I need to work on my look. And
Yeah.
Dora, you always look so well put together in your jewelry and all that. It's like, yeah, I can help you with that. I wasn't planning on it, but heck, and it makes sense for you too,
That's where I
Latar,
am.
because
It does. It makes sense when I'm starting to see. And God was like, "Don't focus on the niche. Focus on the mission and the message. That's where I want your focus to be." That's what it was. And so it's just interesting how He does a thing, and I'm just like, I'm here for the ride, Lord. That's all I can do because I don't want to take control. I want Him to guide him and manage this whole thing that He's doing. I want Him to do it. I just all I want to do is pick up the pieces and do what I got to do along the way and put it together. Yeah. So, oh, that was good. That was good. That was good. And so we're going to be bringing Brandon on right now. He has a great conversation around finances again, y'all. It's going to be good. Pull out some pen and some paper, and we'll be back to talk about it. And after Brandon, we'll have Nadia on.
It's Brandon Galisi, one of your podcast co-hosts. I'm also the founder of Galisi Financial, where I help Henrys, high earners, not rich yet, and entrepreneurs get answers to their financial questions so that they can live more fulfilled lives and focus on what's most important to them. And today, we're going to talk about how to be more intentional with tracking our financial progress in our business and our personal lives so that we can have more gratitude. It can be easy to get caught up in constantly striving for more, especially as entrepreneurs. How many of you out there have ever set a goal, achieved it, and before celebrating or even taking notice of it, you're automatically moving on to the next goal? You've just moved the goalpost. I'm raising my hand, as well as I'm sure many of you out there are. Now, I'm not suggesting that setting goals are bad or wanting to improve your situation or grow your business and improve in your personal life are bad things. Far from that. I think it's incredibly important to have goals, but it's also important that we're intentional and that we're mindful of reflecting on all the things that God has done in our life and some of the goals that we have achieved, because if not, we're just going to be in this constant state of always trying to strive, and that's just not what we want to be as kingdom-driven entrepreneurs. So here's what that can look like in our finances, and we'll start with our business first. A few months ago, I talked about having a system in place so that you can track your business income and expenses. Now, the specifics on what product to use aren't as important as long as it's something that specifically makes sense for you and you're also going to use. So whether that's QuickBooks or Excel, I personally use a free accounting software called Wave Apps. Again, that's not the important part. The key is that you have a system that works for you and that you'll actually track and monitor on an ongoing basis. Because if you're not tracking where you've been, it's going to be really hard to see how far you've truly come. So, what does this look like practically? So there's not going to be one right answer for this. Each person, and depending on their season, this could look a little bit differently. But it starts with setting some sort of time aside on an intentional and regular basis. So for me, what that looks like is I'll review my profit and loss statement on a quarterly basis, and then I compare my numbers to the previous quarter or quarter one of the previous year, maybe the last couple of quarters, just to kind of look at things, just to have a general awareness. And again, it's important to take time to celebrate things where, my revenue was up a little bit this time, so you can celebrate that. Or, hey, my expenses were a little bit lower, and I had made an intentional effort over the last couple of months to reduce my expenses to some degree. We can celebrate those wins, because I think if we don't have this process in place, what happens is we just keep going, sometimes maybe even willy-nilly, and we're not intentional. We don't track our progress, and we really don't know how to tell if we're truly improving. So what I found whenever I'm setting this time aside intentionally is I've actually progressed farther than maybe I had even thought. But again, if we're not intentionally doing this, we're not going to know. And another key part of the process, of course, as kingdom-driven entrepreneurs, is partnering with God. Ask Him for insights. Ask Him to highlight, hey, what area should I be really focusing on maybe for the next quarter or for the next 30 days? Or maybe what areas should I especially be celebrating? So again, we don't have to do this alone. We get to partner with God in the process, which makes it even easier. And again, it's so cool to be able to look back and see where you've progressed. And it's just, you can't do that if you don't have some sort of tracking system in place. This is going to look similar for your personal finances as well. Find a system that you're able to track and monitor your progress and that works for you and your family, and then set time aside on a regular basis and review things. You might see that if you've had a goal to pay off debt, whenever you've tracked it over the last 3 to 6 months, now you can see how much debt you've paid off, which is encouraging and often continues to inspire that action. Or if you've tried to save and invest more, you see that your account balances have grown over the last several months. So it's really important to pause and reflect on all the good things that God has done in our lives over the last, again, could be week, could be months, whatever that time frame is, because if we don't, it can be easy to almost forget the things that God has done in our life or the progress that we've made in our finances in this particular case. So I really do want to encourage you, where the whole point of this process, it's not even just about the money piece, but this could apply to many areas of our lives where if we're intentional, if we pause and reflect, it's going to be much easier to have this sense of gratitude, because we can see all of the good things that God has done in our lives and all the amazing things that have happened over the last several months. No matter how big or how small they are, it really is just so important to pause and reflect. But today I just wanted to share that in the lens of your personal and your business finances. I really do want to encourage you to start tracking your business and your personal finances if you haven't already. And I know that that might sound scary to some because money and finances can sometimes be intimidating, but just remember the purpose and the why behind it. It's to help you gain clarity, help you reduce your stress, and help you realize all the things that God has done in your life so that ultimately you can be even more grateful and get some of those insights for your next steps in both your finances, your business, as well as your life in general. And with that, I'll send you back to the co-host for the rest of today's wonderful episode.
That's good stuff, right? Near the end, he mentioned being intimidated, right, by the dollar, by the money. And what came to me is that because I used to be like that, right, till I met a Shay Mines, and she made me do a cash flow. I was like, I don't make no money. She said, I don't care if you don't make nothing but $25 a week. You gonna cash flow. I'll never forget when she said that. But you can't be in business and be scared to deal with the money.
Yeah.
That's what you're in business for, right? You can't, if you're in business, and God, especially if God has called you, understand this, that he knows that you're going to make money. And so you have to become comfortable. You don't have to be a genius at the dollar, but you have to understand how it moves in your business. So I love that. And I love that he also separated and made sure that we learn how to separate business from personal. You can't mix all that stuff together. Been there, done that too. I used to be the one, had a PayPal card, and I used to swipe it for everything, business, groceries, all of that stuff. And over time, I just found just like this mass mess. And as I started making more money, I realized, okay, wait a minute, this is not making sense. And I learned a lot. And so I check mine every month. I do an end of month review real quick, but at the end of the quarter, I do like a full, like, what does my money look like? Where does it need to go? Where don't I need to be paying attention to right now because it ain't doing nothing for me? And what do I need to be putting more effort in? Or if it's not doing anything, God, what can I do? Or should I do anything with this? Or just put that thing to the side? So I evaluate. What about you all? What was this?
Yeah, I thought he gave some great tips. First, I love his acronym. He works with Henry's. That's so cute.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely tracking income and expenses. Know your numbers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are surprised. Oh, Drum Chick has an MBA. Yeah, surprise. In finance. So I do check my numbers. But here's a good tip too. Keep track of all the subscriptions to things that you have signed up for that you may or may not be using. Or maybe you're only using a portion of it. I'll give you an example. Zoom billed me for the pro account, and it seemed a little bit higher than usual. And I said, wait a second. And I looked, they were adding on whiteboard, which I never use. So I said, really, I just want the basic plan. Can we get rid of that? Some people might not have even noticed that. It's especially when you have things on automatic payment.
Yeah.
So take a look both on your personal side and the business side. What have you subscribed to that you may not really need or that you only need a portion of?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Like Netflix, every time you turn around, they going up. Phil, what you got?
Yeah, so I like the fact that he pointed out, okay, you need your financial systems for business and personal, right? And the reason you need it is because you need to be intentional about looking at, your finances, right? And so I know he mentioned that before, but I was just breaking it down and meditating on it. But then I got to the part here where when he talked about, making sure to review, because by reviewing it, you get a chance to go back and see the progress that you really made. Right. And the key part was he mentioned how it gives you an opportunity to be grateful, right, to God, right? And we're supposed to always give him thanksgiving. And so if we're kingdom driven entrepreneurs, we can't miss out on that. Taking the opportunity to recognize where you were, where he's taking you to, and give him the praise for it.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that review piece is really good. And if you struggle with things like that, find someone you can be accountable to, right? Maybe One of the things that I used to do with our accountability group, activation accountability group, is, I would go, okay, what's your money making goal for this month? And at the end of the month, we review what that looks like and where you went and how that looks. And, every quarter I make them do a profit and loss sheet. They didn't like me. I was like, that's okay. I didn't like Shay either, but I understand why I had to do it, right? I did not like when Shay made me do that. But if you don't know where your dollars are going, then you don't know where your dollars are going.
Yeah.
Get what I'm saying? Right. And you look up and you're like, but where did my money go? Or did I make money this year? Did I make a profit? You won't even know if you don't review and pay attention to those type of things. So that's really important. I love me some Brandon. The wisdom in that dude. Listen, you guys, find Brandon, connect with KDE Financials, and get your money in order. My son, I think, just started his portfolio through Brandon's company. So
Cool.
for him and his family. So because my Gianna Joy, she gonna be loaded. We're gonna make sure she loaded.
There's a good grandma for you.
Right? We don't want her to make the mistakes that we made. And that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why you do want to do things like that. You want to make sure, we're setting legacies and leaving inheritance for our families and our children. We have to make sure that we're doing this thing right. Don't leave a negative or a bad legacy. Don't leave something that they can actually go, my dad taught me this. My granddad taught me this. My grandmother taught me this about the dollar. And this is what they taught me about how the kingdom moves with finances and how to be a better steward. Learn how to do that type of stuff. We don't do that enough because, right? We'll pray about it, but we have to be practical with this thing too. There's a practical part to prayer. Did y'all know that? Like it's let me pray about this. And then God says, go do. That's the practical part. Go do.
Mm-hmm. Right, Latour, because you don't want to leave your family with a boatload of debt.
That's right. You don't want to leave your family with a boatload of debt. You do not. You do not. Been there, done that. When my mom's sister died, and we were like, y'all know she had a lawsuit. We got to kind of figure this stuff out.
Oh, wow.
So they don't take the land, and we got all that figured out. But it shouldn't be like that. That's kind of stuff. Take care of that stuff. So, don't leave that stuff on people. Go get you some help with your finances if you struggle with it. Don't sit and try to guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, you really don't need an MBA in finance to be an entrepreneur. I just wanted to clarify that. But you do need, if it's something that really freaks you out and you're overwhelmed, definitely reach out and get a bookkeeper, get an accountant, have somebody to help you. I have my husband who puts everything on a spreadsheet for me. I have it all, in my own system, and then I send it to him and he makes it look real pretty. And then that makes it so much easier come tax time when we give everything to the CPA to do the taxes. She must think, wow, because she's used to getting shoe boxes, with people's receipts in it because they weren't tracking their expenses and things. So makes it easy all the way around if you keep track of things.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. All right, you guys, this was good. We are getting ready to bring on our guests. And let me tell you who we are bringing on. We are bringing on Dr. Nadia Y. Brown, founder of I know I'm not saying this right, Doyenne agency. She'll correct me. Dr. Nadia Y. Brown, founder of the Doyenne agency, empowers mid-market tech, healthcare, and financial sales leaders and their teams with proven business-to-business strategies that result in revenue growth, shortened sales cycles, and that's real good, and value-centered sales cultures. With ethical selling as her superpower, Dr. Nadia's training solutions create confident, cohesive teams that wield the power of relationship-driven sales to achieve goals with impact. I'm excited about this one because this is not normally something that we're talking about, but we're talking about it today. Hey, Nadia, how are you?
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
So glad that you are here. And we're going to just have a great time today, have a conversation. Like we told you, we shoot from the hip up in here. So
I'm ready.
I don't know if somebody asks questions along the line. What I want you to do is tell us a little bit about what you do. I've already kind of explained it, but that was like the technical stuff that I had to read, right? What it is that you do, how you do it, and then talk a little bit about the shifting that's happening.
Oh gosh. So, as Latara mentioned, like that's pretty much the nutshell. We provide sales training and consulting for B2B, small, mid-sized businesses. And then we also still work with a lot of solopreneurs. And it's really helping people to create sales systems, to create a sales culture, depending if it's a larger company. And then also how to have ethical sales conversations. And so one of the things that I've noticed over the years is that a lot of people shy away from sales because they don't know how to have these conversations in a way that are authentic, effective, but more importantly, ethical. Because a lot of times, sales has a bad rep. Let's just put it out there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times people feel like I have to be someone that I'm not in order to be effective in sales. And that's not true. And so that's the work that I get to do.
So why do you think people have a struggle with sales? Why do they think sales is so like icky?
Well, I think a big part of it is correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all of us have had an experience where we were the buyer and we had a horrible sales experience. Mm-hmm. And it was just, and then, you go through that as the buyer from that perspective. And then one day, you're called to do business and you're like, okay, you're focused on the thing that I get to do, whether it's coaching or consulting or training or all the things. And then you realize, oh, wait, I have to do sales. And so I remember when I started my business and people would be like, okay, I know that you say you're these things, the technical stuff, but you're also a sales and marketer. And I was like, nope, not sales. Because in my mind, I thought that I had to become someone that I'm not. I had to be sleazy. I had to lie to people. I had to strong arm people into working with me. And I was like, I don't want to do that. But I quickly learned that in order for me to have a business, I have to do sales. Like no sales, no business. So you have to figure out, how do I do this in a way that I can still grow my business, be who I am, and still operate within my values?
That's good. So how was that journey for you? And then I'll see if Phil or Dory have. How was that journey for you in like learning how to authentically sell? Because that was a journey for me to learn as well, too.
It was hot mess express. Because I resisted it for so long. And I just kept saying, you know what? God wants me to do this. He'll just send everybody. And that's true to an extent. But like you mentioned earlier, there's a part that you have to do. And a part of the doing was me learning. And it took me hitting rock bottom where there was all the money was going out. None of the money was coming in. And my husband looked at me. He's like, I love you. And I am 100% supportive of what it is that God has you working on. However, you got to figure this out because we can't continue this way. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, I have some decisions to make. I can either pack it up and go back to corporate, get a full-time job and work it out, which there's nothing wrong with that. Or I can figure out how to sell in a way that really works and I can grow the business. And through that process, part of that was actually, I got the opportunity to work with a team and supporting them. And it's so funny because I always tell people, I didn't know then what I know now. So I thought I was coming in to do one thing and I did that, but I ended up doing a whole lot more. And part of that was sales. And one day the founders looked at me and they were like, one, do you realize how much you sold? And I was like, no, I actually hadn't. I didn't do anything I was supposed to do, like tracking it. I was just out here. I was just talking to people. If there was a way we could help them, I would just offer them the opportunity, not realizing, that's sales. And then through that process, they also started tapping me to do things like training people and coaching people. And then people would say, Nadia, thank you so much, And so when I left that team and I was kind of like, well, do I just do my leadership stuff or do I bring in this piece around sales? I had those who were like, you cannot sit on this gift. You have to incorporate that some way. And so we pivoted the business in 2017 from just leadership to incorporating sales.
Wow.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Dr. Nadia, I think the whole issue around sales for many people, including me, is because we are constantly getting these DMs, especially on LinkedIn. They don't know you from Adam, but they're going to sell you something because people in your industry, I'm like, you don't even know what my industry is. It's very unique. They don't open with, I really love what you're doing. Tell me more about drum therapy. Nah, they just automatically jump into the sales pitch. And that's like, you're going on your first date and proposing. You just don't do that. You have to get to know the
That's
person
not how it should be done.
I mean, come on.
I agree. And it's people have often asked, like, what's the secret to relationship driven sales? And I was like, the focus on relationship. Like, you have to invest the time to get to know people, get to know your audience, start building that relationship, let them get to know you. And like you said, Dora, you can't just start at hello, will you marry me? Like, hello, buy my stuff. And on LinkedIn, I have the DR. So I get those automated messages, hello, doctor. And that's it. So I'm like, I know you don't know me. But it really does make a difference when you do even a little bit of research where you really, even if it's cold outreach, I've responded and sometimes bought based on cold outreach, but it was because they put in a little bit of elbow grease to get to know me and build a relationship. And then we went from there.
That's good. That's good. You got anything, Phil?
Yeah, I was going to say, as someone that is tasked now with doing sales, ethical sales, is there one thing that kind of chafes your hide when you see it from the sales industry when someone that's doing sales does it? Is there one thing?
I have a laundry list. We don't even have time for all the things that annoy me, but I would say a big one is the creation of false urgency. So you have that whole thing, and there is a way to influence people, and I get it. We want to shorten sales cycles. We want people to make a decision. We don't want them to sit on the fence forever. However, a lot of times in the industry, people just create this false sense of urgency, and a lot of times it's just not true. And that's sometimes a struggle because I still support people in doing sales, and I'm like, okay, is this real? Like, that's the question we ask the sales. Like, is this a real deadline or not? Like, at what point? And so that's probably one of the things, like, how do you create, do you really need to create urgency, especially once you explain and demonstrate the value? And what we consider urgent doesn't necessarily mean that's urgent to our buyers. But then also, is there a way? Well, yeah, the answer is yes. So how do you create that urgency if you feel the need to in a way that is true?
That's a great point. And I am guilty of doing that in the very beginning because you see everybody else doing that. And I had
you were like, oh, I guess it's what we do.
I was in different coaching programs. They give you the sales script and all that. Act now, today only at this price, or I only have 3 spots remaining. It's my best radio voice. There you go. But I stopped doing that. And I was very honest, especially with people on my newsletter list. I would say, look, I really only have the time and the mental bandwidth to handle 5 clients. And that's what I have open right now, are 5 spots. So if you'd like to grab one of those or you'd like to know more, please feel free to sign up for a free call and let's chat. That's it.
Yep. That's it. Easy peasy.
That sense of urgency, it's irritating. It's like, I went to your site yesterday, it said I had 2 hours left, and I'm there today, it says I have 2 hours left. What?
Yes.
That's a long 2 hours, right? That's a real long 2 hours. Now, Nadia, I know that you for the longest time with your company, pronounce it, please, so I say it right.
Doyenne.
Yeah, okay. Doyenne.
Yep, you got it.
Doyenne. Okay.
Bless
I
you.
might mess it up again. Huh? What'd you say?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You said bless you.
There's always one,
Always.
I know that your company, for the longest time, it was centered on women, helping women with sales, right? With learning how to get comfortable with sales. And as a matter of fact, when before you came to our certification program, before I even kind of knew you, right? I went to your website. I don't know how I found out about you. I think you were on the KDE podcast before with Shay. And I think maybe that's how I found you. And I clicked and I was reading and I said, oh, okay. I might have to, check this chick out and see what she's talking about, because I still struggle with sales, right? And I was really interested. And then, this shift happened, right? Like, it's like, okay, so now she's talking about this shift and all this other kind of stuff, because we were in Catalyst together as well. And so I know that you were one space and it was a comfortable space. And then God said, psst, 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 hey, girl, let me talk to you for a minute. We're about to do something different.
We're about to shake things up a bit.
How like, tell us a little bit about what that was like, or moving from, like, you have, I'm rolling, I'm doing this, and then he interrupts the moment.
In the moment, it felt rude and disrespectful. Wait, what? So I knew that at some point, you know, we would, so when we first started the agency, we provided sales support. Like, that's all we did, was just doing the sales on behalf. And so slowly over the years, we kind of been transitioning out of a lot of that. So I knew that the shift was coming. That was part of the bigger vision. But I always just thought that our audience wouldn't shift. Like, you know, we would still work with women. We would still address those issues. We would still help them be able to grow their businesses, all those good things. And as I'm going through the process, you know, anytime you're shifting your audience, you got to go back to the beginning and look at this and talk to God about that. And I was working on some content when we were updating my website. And then I was also working on a document to share with my warm network. So that's one thing, is I make shifts and pivots. I update my people that I know I trust. I'm like, hey, this is what we're doing now. And as I'm working on this, I'm sharing it with people that I trust. And there were several times, it was more than once, where the question was, is this just for women? And my initial was, yes, that's all I've ever done this whole time, is work with women. That's one thing that's remained consistent. And so the first time it comes up, you know, I'm kind of like, stop tripping. And then it comes up again. And then we're in a catalyst call. And I don't think it was Shay, but I think it was one of our fellow catalysts was like, can men also benefit? And I was like, well, yeah, but why? So then I had to go back, and I'm like, is it just because it keeps coming up from people? And I think it's something that I need to investigate. And then I also, during this time, I was awarded a business grant. And as part of that, we had to write a business plan. And then we met with the team, and they kind of walked us through. And one of the feedback I received was, Nadia, your plan too small. And there's this opportunity beyond where you've been. And so I had to go back a couple of times, like, I'm in my feelings about this, and I don't know how to feel about it. But the answer is yes, Nadia, you can work with men. And as you look at expanding the types of companies and the size, guess what? Men work there too. And so that was, a big shift. And honestly, I hadn't really paid too much attention to it, honestly, until we had that meeting, Latara, where it came up in our conversation with the other certified providers. And I was like, I made that connection. Like, you went from being one of the few women in an industry, even when I was in corporate, kind of shifting into, you got, years of getting to work primarily with women. And then now you're kind of shifting where now you're working with both again. And it was like, all right, there's something bigger at play. So it wasn't all at once. It's been this gradual process of, okay. And you get to bring that perspective to those conversations, but also just helping people understand, because whether you're a solopreneur, a smaller business owner, or working within a team, women and men often float differently. And it's important to bring attention to that.
That's interesting. So what I heard was like the Holy Spirit said to you, behold, I do a new thing. Doyenne not perceive it?
He is on a roll, man.
He is on a roll. I'm turning my camera
Wait. That deserves a rim shot. Hold on. Wait. There we go.
He is on one.
He'll be here all week, folks. Tip your wait staff. Hey, try the veal.
Yeah, it's true.
That's kind of how it happened, right? Because it sounds like you were in this place where you were hearing it, but you were like, nah, and surely that's not God. And then
I was like, these people are tripping. And then God was like, no, you, my dear, are the one that is tripping. And I was like, oh, my bad.
Yeah,
okay, let me get my life together.
Nadia, I totally get that, because it's happened so many times where I've gotten really comfortable, like, okay, I've got the hang of this. And for a while, I was doing a lot of events and classes with kids. It's like, okay, we can do this. And, I got to get my energy up so they don't think it's lame. And then, God shifts me. No, now you're going to be doing some drum ministry training for nonprofits. It's like, wait, what? Virtually. Okay. How about corporate wellness virtually? Okay. And so, yeah, a lot of guys on the call.
Oh, yeah.
And I was used to dealing with the moms of, whether it's special needs kids or, just kids in general. So now we got the corporate arena. And now I've been introduced to the possibility of corporate creativity programs.
Nice.
All right,
Yeah.
game on. You just never know. But yeah, I know the feeling of no. I'm good right
I'm
here.
good. I got this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Because you were in this comfort space, right, Nadia?
Oh,
It was
yeah.
your comfort space, and God said it's time to stretch. What has that stretch been like for you? Like, what's been the biggest struggle in this stretch?
Oh gosh. I would say one of the bigger struggles has been accepting it, but then also being comfortable with my voice. Because, sometimes when you shift and you feel like you have to shift in order to show up a certain way. And it's like, no, you show up as Nadia. You're still Nadia, whether you're working only with women or a mixed group. And so that's been part of the challenge. And it's like, what does my voice look or sound like in this new arena? And then it was really interesting because I just released this whole collection of stuff, a book and all these different resources, like less than 2 years ago, that was specifically for women. And so then it was just like, wait a second, like, was I supposed to do that? Like you said, you just start to question yourself. So I think dealing with the doubt, continuing to just trust that I am on the right path and all of these things are working together, even when I don't see the full picture, has probably been one of the bigger challenges.
The accepting piece, right? That piece where we have to kind of go, okay, this is what it is. I have to accept this. It's a struggle. It's a stretch, right? I talked about stretching, yes, on the live I did, and how important it is to stretch. Here's a massage therapist. Stretching is important for your body. And so it's an important part of really who we are all the way around. A stretching season is necessary, right? Because if you stay in your comfort space, then it kind of minimalizes your growth. It kind of, your growth gets stunted a little bit, right? And God wants us to stretch and to grow even more. One of the things that you talked about earlier, really, you talked about relationship marketing. And I always tell people the best relationship marketer in the world is Jesus Christ. Like, he just like was the best marketer ever. You want to know how to build your business, how to market, go and just read what he did and how he did it, especially his conversation with the woman at the well. That's like one of the best marketing pieces ever. Right? So here you are, and you're relationship marketer, and you're in this industry where, this male-dominated industry, and men typically don't think about marketing or sales from a relationship perspective, right? That's not a typical thing. They tend to think of it in a different way, sometimes a little bit more aggressive. How do you find yourself bringing in that part about relationship marketing as you're training these teams, and some of them are men? How are you doing that, right? And I'm doing this because I want you guys to understand that we're going to be in arenas where we can't give scripture. We can't say, let me pray for you. We're going to have to really lean into the Holy Spirit to give us that practical way to be able to do these things. So how are you moving in this arena where it's like, build relationships, what? But it's key.
I think, well, one, I definitely pray. I'm like, okay, Lord, you're going to have to help me to understand and give me the insight based on the organization and just how they naturally flow. Part of what we get to do is also just look at how they're already doing their marketing and their sales systems and kind of plug into that. And so you point out the pieces where here's how we can expound on this. Because I feel like, and all of us, men and women, we get impatient, especially when we're in business and we're focused on our goals and we want things to go faster. And, when you're in markets where things have slowed down and people are taking longer to make decisions, it's easy to get discouraged, but it's also easy to allow your impatience to drive the bus. And so reminding people that there's only so much you can do. You do show up and do your part consistently. But I also think, taking the time to listen, that's probably one of the bigger things, especially salespeople. When people think of salespeople, they think of people that talk a lot. And then they talk and they talk and they don't listen. So part of what I bring to the table is let's pause and listen and really truly set your processes and systems up where you are listening to what people are saying, what people aren't saying, and then have a way to track it so you can remember. Because if you have a lot of things going on, you don't always remember. So having a database or in your sales system or in your CRM, whatever that tool is that you're using, to be able to track that. So when I come back and I have another conversation with Latara, I remember her mom's name, her children's names. Like those little things matter. And a lot of times it's easy for people to overlook them and they don't think they're as important as they can be. Like that could be the difference between someone saying yes to your company versus going with another company that, on all things being equal, you guys kind of do the same things. Was this person saw me as a person. So really treating people like they're humans, whether you're working with individuals or companies, and like you're working with people that have feelings, people that have emotions, people that have things going on, people that want to feel seen and heard. And when you can show up like that as a salesperson and really implement that in your sales process, it makes a huge difference.
Cool. I have a question, Nadia. Is there, have you noticed that you have a go-to question that you ask your clients that help with the relationship aspect of the work that you do?
Ooh, I think my go-to is tell me how you connect. Like walk me through what that looks like. Or one of my favorites is how do you want people to feel as they interact with your company, whether they're a client or not? Because how they feel does play a part in whether or not they make a buying decision. And sometimes we overlook that part of it. So how do you want them to feel? What do you want that experience to be like? And then I tell people, you have the opportunity to give your prospects a different sales experience. Like they may have had a bad experience before. Chances are they did have a bad experience, but you have the opportunity to provide a different experience. And in that, hopefully that'll be that strengthening that will help them to say yes to becoming a client.
That's good.
I have a question. I can give you my take on things, but Nadia, I'd like to hear it from you. Do you find that you have to speak or write to men and women differently?
Yes and no. I think it depends. So in my experience, because I've worked in industries, like my background prior to being an entrepreneurship was engineering, IT, finance. So I work with a lot of men. I think, that men tended to be a little more direct in broad strokes versus women tended to need a little more connection. However, it doesn't mean that men don't want that recognition, right? Or that relationship building piece. So sometimes, and depending on the person, you will be a little more to the point versus where I may share a little bit more, or we will have, especially in conversation, having that time to just have that connection or that debrief. But that's not always the case, especially if you find women that have worked in these types of environments, then you've just been trained to get to the point and let's go. So you have to also connect with the person in front of you. And that's also building in that flexibility, because I find that decision makers across the board don't have a lot of time to waste. And so you still, even in the connection, you have to find a way to connect, but connect quickly so you can get to the point of the matter and keep things moving along.
Exactly. Yeah. Business number 2 for me was I was in the music industry, and I was the only female promoter in the area. So dealing with the bands, most of them were male, and the venue owners and any organizers, they were all men. So yeah, I had to keep it short and sweet and to the point, bullet pointed, so that they knew boom, boom, boom. And you couldn't go on and on, definitely, because they wouldn't read the rest of the email. Like, okay, click, I'm done.
I'll move on to the next thing. Yeah, definitely.
Good. That's good. So Nadia, I have a question for you. Why did God choose you for this particular assignment?
Well, let's see. No, I think that's a good question. Part of why I believe God chose me was my own experience. I come from a place where I was not always good at this. And so I have that understanding when people are challenged or they're nervous or they, have concerns about it. And one of the things I talk about all the time is the courage it takes to do sales. Like, I get that it's not this, I woke up like this because I didn't. And so I think that's a big part of it. And then I think the other piece is just my natural interest in women. Like, my dissertation was about women leaders. And so just, how we flow differently, but not in a place of making women better than men or, but how the two can work together and what we can learn from working with male teams. I share some of that too. I work with men and I'm like, okay, ladies, like, I get it, but there are some things that we can learn from them and implement, of course, and make it our own. And so I think that that's part of it too, is being able to see both sides and how we can marry the two and find your unique skills, even from the male perspective and also from the female perspective, and then create your process within your business.
That's good. That's really, really good. I think that it's important to have these conversations around sales and marketing and how God is inundating, is moving into an industry where you would think that, oh, God don't care about that. Yes, he do. He cares about all things, right? He does care about that. He does care about how we do it. And as you were talking earlier, and we're talking about this relationship marketing piece again, and how important it is to every aspect of what we do in business. I just thought about the woman at the well again. The reason why Jesus was able to get her to this place of hearing, of listening, is because, well, first off, he heard her. He listened. He met her in a space at a time of day. Ain't nobody getting no water at 3:00 in the afternoon, right? So he met her in a space where she was like, well, who is this man? Who are you? And he had this conversation with her that really invited her into his world in a whole different way. And it made her go, I want to know more. Not only do I want to know more, I want to bring more people in. And that's such a value in relationship marketing, because that's that growth piece again. So we can't stay stuck in one way of marketing and sales. We have to learn how to really do this thing in the way that God is like, yeah, this is how we do this. This is the example of how you do that. So we can bring the hundreds and the thousands and the more, not necessarily to our sales funnel, but to the message that God has through whoever that person is for that moment. Right. And so I just want to say, as a woman, we're going to push Phil to the side for a minute. As a woman,
Must have been that bad pun,
I
Phil.
want to commend you, because you're moving in an industry in a way that I see God, because I see God and I can hear it in what you're talking about. I want to commend you, because I know that can be something where some days you just want to be like, you know what? I'm tired. I'm about to hang this up. I'm done with this. But I know that God has called me to this. And so I need to keep going. So I just had to stop and commend you on that one.
Oh, thank you. And you're right. There are days I'm like, seriously, Lord, are you sure? I could be just a stay-at-home mom. Like, I'm sure I can handle that.
Yeah. Dory or Phil, you have any questions? Y'all know I can keep going.
I'm trying not to, because for some reason, like y'all said, I'm on one, and so I keep getting puns in my head, and so I'm until something else comes out, I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. No, but I do have a question. It's about I've noticed for myself that God begins to speak to me about His kingdom through the work that I do. Like, and so I want to know if there's any particular revelation that you've gotten about the kingdom based off of the type of work that you're doing.
Oh my goodness. I hear a lot. I pray a lot. So anybody's ever had a sales convo will probably know, like, having those conversations, you hear what's on people's hearts. And when you create the space, even in a sales conversation, you create that space and you provide them that to open up and talk things out. You hear what's going on. And so a big part of it is things that I'm hearing now. People are tired. They're wanting solutions. They just want to know, like, what do I need to do next? People are hurt. So there is some hurt, and I've tried a lot of things. I probably worked with some people and, enrolled, invested in some programs that didn't work, or worked with some unscrupulous folks that, and so there's a lot of, I would say, doubt and hurt and weariness right now that people are experiencing.
So how do you think those of us are those who specifically work, because we're all sales marketers. Every one of y'all, if you got a business,
right?
You're in sales and marketing, okay? So how can someone begin to, be the kingdom for those people? Like, how can you do that?
One is do what you say you're going to do. Like, I think that sounds so basic, but it's really easy to come up with a lot of ideas and then not follow through. So really just do whatever it is you say you're going to do. And then also listen, like be open to listening. Part of the feedback I've got received as a salesperson, and sales, if people are like, thank you for listening. And you would be like, really? Like, just thank you for giving me the space to sometimes talk it out, to share my heart. And whether or not they decided to move forward in that moment, they were just grateful for having that space. And so anytime I think that we can provide that space for people to process, and then, helping them to find a solution. So it's not providing vent sessions, but it is, those spaces where we can provide, where they can share. And a lot of feedback people get from salespeople, or I should say feedback they have about salespeople, is that salespeople don't listen. And so that's a frustration that people have when interacting with us as sales and marketers, is that we don't listen. And so one, listen, but then also respect, providing that level of respect and respecting the buying decision, the buying process that people go through, because it's easy for us to project. And then I would just say, continue to pray for people, because there's just a lot of, like I said, weariness and feeling a little jaded. And so it may take them a while to kind of warm up to you, to saying, okay, this is that next best step. And then I could trust that this is going to be a different experience, because unfortunately they've had some less than stellar experiences prior.
Yeah, that's great. Being on the opposite end of being a buyer, you said to make sure that you really honor their buying process, like where they are, because sometimes I used to tell people, if I tell you I don't have the money right now, I mean, I don't have the money right now. Don't keep asking.
No, Latar, that's just the story you're telling
Right,
yourself.
right. That's what
that's limiting beliefs.
Yeah, that's what I would hear. And it's like, well, no, do you want to see my wallet? Because like, really, I don't have the money right now. And I had to learn, because I was like, okay, well, God, how do I approach this? What does this look like? And one of the things that I do with people as a buyer, as a seller, and a marketer is I tell people, I go, well, I truly believe that if God intends for you to be a part of this, he will be provider for you. So go have the conversation with him.
Yeah.
And so that eases the oh gosh, you're not trying to, I don't want your dollar more than I want you to have peace of mind for what it is that you're doing.
Because you can't do the work in a program if you're constantly stressed out about how you're going to pay the bills, or you're homeless. Like, no. Nope.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. And I tell people, we'll be here. If it's not now, I don't plan for us to go anywhere at this company. As far as I know, we're going to be around. So when you're ready, just come back. We'll be here to serve you when the time is right.
That's good. And that's a good tip, y'all out there. Just don't pressure people into buying. And I want to really put this to my coaches, because we're taught to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Don't pressure people into buying, because you never know where somebody is. And that's not the kingdom.
Yeah.
Then also the other part I want to add to that, Latar, especially for coaches, because you work closely with people in a coaching program, is if I have to convince you and bully you into buying, I have to constantly convince you and bullying you into staying. And that is exhausting for both of you. And so honor people's process. I have seen people I've had conversations with come back months, years later. So that's why the relationship part is so important. Just continue to maintain that relationship, continue putting your stuff out there, continue sending your newsletter. And when everything is right, they will buy.
Yeah,
I think that's great advice across the board, because no matter what industry you're in, you really have to meet people where they are and listen. And I think everybody that I've been dealing with, whether it's corporate or not, I'm hearing that a lot. They're tired, they're stressed out, overwhelmed, whatever. So you need to take that into consideration and forget those stinking sales scripts, man. Both when I was working for companies and on my own and working with coaches, it's like, I can't say this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's too much pressure. And it's just not right. So
Mhm.
yeah, didn't last long
Agreed.
there.
Ditch the sales script, please. Please and thank you.
Yes.
You know, it sounded like one of the things I heard from what you were sharing, Nadia, is part of helping people in sales is helping them see their own value, right?
Mhm.
Because when they see their own value in the relationship, then they could, then they can see that it's almost like they can see that they're worth the investment.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I could be hearing that wrong, but that's kind of like a theme that I heard. And so
Yeah.
just put it out there for the people.
That's good. That's good. And that's true. And if they don't have the funds, right? What I've done is I'm like, okay, God, listen, this is something I really want to do. So how do we make this happen? And again, he's gonna be provision,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I trust that he'll do that, and he
Mm-hmm.
always works it out. Sometimes he'll tell me, well, no, that just ain't for you right now. But
Mhm.
if it
Yeah.
is, then he shows me the door, and it always works. It always works. And so I love that. This was such a great conversation, Nadia. Again, thank you for coming on. I won't say your agency name again, but the link to the agency,
Doyenne.
Doyenne,
Bless you.
Doyenne, it is in the description. So if you want to learn more about what Nadia and her agency does, go and check that out. Dig deep. She has some great books. Listen, I know it's for women, but y'all go grab that book. You might learn something too, man. Go grab the book. What's the name of the book?
So Like a Lady, How to Master Sales with Dignity, Class, and Grace.
Listen, if Steve Harvey can teach you how to, think like a man, then, go grab. Teach women how to think like a man, then, hey.
So where do we send them to find out what you're doing?
Oh, no. There is
The website is thedoyenneagency.com. Not whatever Phil just said, not that. I can't with you today. I'll tell a Shay on you when she get back in the country.
I know. Phil, what did you have for lunch?
You know what?
Something. I mean, he on one today. I'm like,
He is.
He had a plate of puns or something.
Get me to sleep.
over here. Listen, he meddling. I'm like, what is he doing today?
I bet it helps some people remember that name though.
But the link is in the description of this podcast. We want to thank you guys so much for joining us this week. Listen, we'll be back next week. I don't know if Phil gonna be cutting up next week. Who knows? I cut up all the time, so I don't know if Phil gonna really be on one next week.
I might not be invited next week.
I might forget to email you. You never.
Whoops.
You never know. Nadia, before we leave though, real quick, I want you to give people one thing that they can do to become a better seller and marketer.
Ooh, just one?
Mm-hmm. But give me 3.
Okay. One is listen. Definitely listen. Listen more than you talk. I know we talked about ditching the sales script. However, I do encourage you to create a conversation guide so it keeps you focused and guides the conversation. So that would be 2. And then the third thing would be be present. Don't allow distractions. Like when you're with someone, that's a gift, even in a sales conversation, to be fully present during that conversation with that person.
Good stuff. There you guys have it. Go back and listen. Don't ask her to repeat it. Don't ask me what she said, because I'm going to tell you, I don't know. Go back and listen. Well, we want to thank you guys so much for joining us. Nadia, don't leave. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you all. We will be back next week. Not sure about Phil again, but we'll be back next week. See you all later.